I'm being recorded. Welcome to the rooftop of our country's first 100% solar-powered apartment complex. Low-income seniors in Arcata. It's like got teaching kitchen and Pilates and a hacienda on the ground floor, and then 2 stories above that of low-income seniors. And we 100% solar-powered this in 2012/13. And behind that, you can see our nation's tallest forest, the Redwood Forest in Humboldt County. Yay! So you're about a block away from the plaza, at the heart of downtown Arcata, one of the most solarized parts of our whole country. And people have been putting solar panels up in Arcata, partly funded by the clandestine marijuana industry. Like the entire 1980s, when Reagan had removed all the rebates nationwide, but really the only place that solar was still selling in the whole country was Humboldt County. So if you have smoked recently, you can thank the growers for keeping the industry alive for almost 20 years, from about 1980 to 2000. You know, PG&E never let us hook up until 2001. There's the guerrilla solar movement, where people are putting solar clandestinely, putting black masks on and photographing themselves to prove that they shot it, and sticking their face in magazines like Home Energy magazine. So I've been a part of that movement since 1995, and we have come a long way. We have real success behind us now as a state, as a community. But CCAT started in 1978. It's the last demonstration house that's left in the Carter era in the whole country. It was funded and founded at that time. The student funding didn't disappear when Reagan came into office, so the house didn't disappear. HSU sort of forgot about it in a little corner of campus. So when I got there, it was essentially 20 years later. They had a pedal-powered grain grinder, pedal-powered drill press, table saw, pumps, laptop computer, TV VCR. I got to watch the Battle for Seattle, the World Trade Organization protest in Seattle in 1999, on a pedal-powered TV. For a whole hour, the activists came back. And it was really hurts your butt to pedal that long on TV. So, as my house, those were my surprise twins up in my office there. I have a sod roof office, and we had twins that we probably had 1, 2. There's my little solar-powered all-electric house. We electrified this only completely a year ago. I've been working on it for a decade, but I had a gas leak in my front yard. 5% leakage in the soil, explosive. If someone had tossed a cigarette butt there, it would have blown up the yard. And they took 3 months to fix it. If it had been underneath my house, it would have been there that day. But it wasn't. It was in my front yard, so they took their sweet time. And it was panic-inducing for my kids, particularly. It was like 9 at the time. Like, Daddy, you're gonna blow up. I'm like, I don't think so, but you know, don't throw anything lit at the yard. So oopsie, horses. A science teacher. I worked for one of the big 10 affordable housing developers for 6 years, and it was there. This is an all Republican-owned business. If everyone listens to hate radio in the morning when you show up at work, just going down the hallway, Michael Savage on one side, Rush Limbaugh on the other. People are very angry, and that was where I succeeded in doing 100% solar-powered housing, because it was the least expensive way for them to do the developments. And I take you through that, but truly, like, they kept me on. They lost 150 people during the recession. I was the 9th person let go. And pretty much just accounting, because this strategy of zero net energy housing was so successful. That was sort of like it was like the goose that lays the golden egg. It was one of the only ways they could figure out how to survive in the recession. And they still do it. Danco is still today one of the leaders in all-electric solar-powered buildings. And I consult for them now. It's nice to I work for my boss, but I don't have to work for my boss anymore. Okay, so I want to give you guys a metaphor. The last time we really transitioned energy use was with horses. There were reasons. We went from 4 million to 24 million horses in 60 years in the United States. Our streets were literally filled with feces. You could not really cross streets in New York City without someone to shovel the way for you. It was like snow that never left. And it was 200,000 horses in New York City. So the amount of dead horses on the street, there is 5,000 a year that had to be hauled off the street. Now, the dead horses, they would lay there, people would abandon them, and then they would grow flies. There's maggots, and the maggots turn flies, the whole circle of life. And it would create diseases all over. Dropsy and glanders is prevalent. Several deaths reported in uptown stables. Uptown New York. Virulent type of horse disease at Baltimore reports one of the places, just headlines, New York Times. It was a big deal. Horses were dead everywhere on the streets, and people were beating their horses to death. Can't beat a dead horse comes from a real experience. People beat their horses to death all the time. Horses only lived for 3 years long in New York City. The founding of the ASPCA, the American Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals, was a New York City effort to get people to stop beating their horses and to start putting them in at night in the wintertime. I'm thinking of how cold it got just last week in New York City. People didn't used to put the horses in. Horses live naturally for 30 years, and they die at an average of 3 years in New York City. They would take 2 acres and 30 tons of hay a year. They would poop 30 to 40 pounds a day on the street and piss a gallon each horse. I used to have a horse-drawn carriage business. I did that for a summer. It was like my first year, freshman year in college. I just got this crazy job from this crazy guy. And I did it all summer long, Friday, Saturday, and then like Sunday weddings. And I had the only horse in downtown Madison. And it made such a mess just to have one horse. I would pass the same pile of poop that I left there an hour earlier. I wasn't like cleaning up. You don't have to. And it's a terrible mess. It's like 30 pounds of poop you're talking about. You might be cleaning up. So this is what it used to look like. New York City, horses out in the snow, hundreds of thousands of them, many of them poorly trained. They're dangerous. So what changed is the horse has become unprofitable. It's too costly to buy and too costly to keep. Dispense with the horse, the ad says, and save the expense, care, and anxiety of keeping it. To run a motor carriage costs about 1/2 cent a mile. The Winton motor carriage. So horses disappeared in a space of 15 years. We went from being completely horsey to no horsey. And in San Francisco, horses were all over on the flatlands and never on the hills. So yeah, that worked. So San Francisco had an easier lift with getting rid of horses. Actually, it was train companies that did it. Like they wanted the business, so they shut down the horses. The same way the car companies shut down the trains later by buying the train tracks. So the analogy here took about 15 years. It was done through 1,000 cuts. You have to have a carriage house now. Well, it's really expensive if you're in New York City to have that carriage house, take care of that horse. I know there's a beat it to death. No, now you got to take care of it, and someone's going to arrest you for beating your horse, which, like I said, that used to be the thing. That the animal protection part of it, the pollution part of it, the danger part of it, each of these things are different ways in which the issue was slowly whittled down, and then the cheapness of it. One thing to note, though, is that cars are much more dangerous than horses in terms of the number of kids killed. There's a real transition in our road culture from kids being in streets to cars killing kids so frequently that streets had to be, that's not a place for people now. Car companies, they're the ones who really badly wanted that transition to allow them to go 40 miles an hour down a road that used to have like 7 miles an hour horses. So, kid deaths. Now, this trend of electrification is not policy-driven, it is cheap-driven. The leaders of electrification in our country are the least environmental part of it, politically, south. They are electrifying about 60% of their new construction. Nationally, we're at a little bit of 1 in 4 homes right now are all electric built in the country. In California, it's like 10% are all electric. We are one of the least successful states in the whole United States at doing electrification because we have cheap fossil fuels. We're an oil-producing state. We frack, we drill, we've had oil, 90% of our buildings are gas. Nationally, the average is 50-50. So we're at the extreme end of gasification. We are one of the worst of all states in the union at this. And you can see down here, that's Los Angeles area. That blue means that's gas that grew in market share between 2010 and 2014. Nationally, look at the reality. Yellow is electrification. Everywhere. It doesn't look like an electoral map. There's no political divide in that map. It's just developers trying to reduce the cost of construction on the house that will cost the same one way or another. It's just about that. Just cutting costs. And that is how electrification is going on in our country. And I encourage us all to look at that carefully, because fighting with people with money is like spitting into the wind. And it really would be much better to figure out how to lower the costs for people and just keep on moving without arguing over things. So here's costs. This is how I got my job at Danco and kept it. So it demonstrated that This is SoCal gas numbers. Navigant is their pet consultant that says whatever they want them to say. So Navigant themselves said it cost more, $1,000 to $3,000 more to get a furnace instead of a heat pump, a furnace air conditioner. That's SoCal Gas saying this. They said on water heaters, it's the same price, electric or gas. They said, oh, the dryer is more expensive, it's gas. The stove is more expensive, it's gas. That's the gas company said. Now, that first chunk is a few grand, maybe $3,000 you can save on a new construction house. Then there's the utility meter and the lateral from the main in the street. That's in PG&E territory, $16,500 to run a gas line. That's actually specifically from a Richmond bill that I saw, but it's true in their documentation. $16,500 to do a little drill underneath the sidewalk. They won't trench anymore. Now they want to drill underneath and pop it up. And they have to show up with special equipment, they have to shut down the street, and it's not cheap. It's super expensive, as a matter of fact. Then, as a developer's project manager, I had to do road systems that do subdivision. So it's between $745,000 and $1.9 million a mile for the load pressure distribution. That's just the stuff that's in your residential streets, and it's expensive. But as soon as you start getting into higher pressure transmission systems, it jumps up to $3.2 million a mile. And your very high pressure, that's the stuff that goes across the continent, $85.4 million a mile, and then at least $7 per natural gas well. And there's leaks the entire way. Every single step has a leak. The leaks add up to 2.4 to 4.3%. That's conservative. And then about 40 grand a house so you can measure as a developer if you're working in California. That could be as low as like $7,000 or $8,000 in the deserts of Utah because of labor prices. California is the most expensive place in the United States to develop if you're in the Bay Area. That is, gets no worse. So I just want to acknowledge that it can be less expensive, but it's never cheaper, ever. It's always more expensive to put in gas into development. And this gas leakage, I'm going to get into that, but fundamentally, if you are using gas, gas has a global climate change impact of about 100 over its 20 years. So think about this. You're burning gas in your home, and you have a leak associated with it. Every step of the way. I mean, just your meter has a thing called a pressure regulator, which regulates the pressure by leaking. It's like a little thing that's just purposely designed to leak. So just that. But let's say just your house leakage is about 1%. You add that up. So you burn 99 units, and each of those produce CO2. CO2 has an impact of 1 over like 100 years. The 1% that you leak has an impact of 100 over its 20-year lifespan. Those numbers, you move them together. And so for every time you're burning, say, a therm of gas and you have 1% leak, that 1% leak equals all the pollution you cause by burning it. Just the leak at your house. So you take whatever you're burning and then you double it. And then you go outside on the street and you've got another leak, close to 1%. So now you're going to triple it. And you're going to add in a couple of these transmission leaks, very small leakage in the transmission lines. The high pressure stuff is very tight. But then you get to the extraction areas where it's just, destroying the ground with little earthquakes and icky stuff that's sticking in the ground. You got 1 to 3% leaks. So you're in the 4 times to 5 times as much pollution as you think you're causing because of leaks that are upstream of you. And propane, by the way, is not that way. Propane is a global climate change impact of 3 versus 100. So gases are not the same, and methane is a particularly bad gas for climate change. So all you're burning, if you think you're being efficient by burning less, you haven't done anything really. Your little efficiency of 20% doesn't touch your 500% more because of the leakage associated with it. And you really can't do much. Your efficiency in your house doesn't change the leaks. The only way to stop the leaks is stop using it completely. To start shutting down neighborhoods, to start removing gas systems, and to no longer pay for wells to be dug on our behalf. So this is early adopters of zero carbon homes. They're fancy, they're lovely. A lot of them are in California. These are early adopters up above the Arctic Circle. I want to make sure that you knew that all electric works everywhere. Heat pumps now are -30 Fahrenheit products. So even in the polar vortex in Wisconsin, where I'm from, it didn't get to -30 it got to like -15 or so, -20. So heat pumps work now above the Arctic Circle. This is a slide deck from 2015. I haven't had studio people credit. These are their projects. So just want you know, Truckee, you bet, South Lake Tahoe, go for it. Go to the top of the mountain, have fun. All electric works great there too. Now where we're going though is production homes. Today, 1 in 5 new California homes have solar array. It's not small. The average solar array on a new house, 1 in 5 new homes, 8 kilowatts, which is massive. It's not a small thing, it's a big PV array. That's enough to power the house and maybe a car. So we are seeing, because it sells, 1 in 5 homes this year being solarized. These are production homes, it's all about selling it. And next year, we're gonna have all homes. I don't know if you caught that, but the code that starts on January 1st, all homes in California have to put in a PV array. All apartments under three stories and less, all of it. And it's about 60% offset, it's not 100%, because we still have gas in it, but we're pretty close there. So it'll be 85,000 residences next year built in California, all of the solar array, starting January 1st, to get a permit. So I want to show you, what does that look like? These are 100% solar-powered senior homes in Fort Bragg, a little close to the ocean. 26 houses, they're cute, like 600 square feet. People love them, love them, love them, love them. These are low-income tenants who don't have utility bills. They get negative $180 a year. They get paid to live there. So the 4 kilowatts a house is 100% solar offset. Ductless mini splits. So there's a compressor lives outside. It's split from the fan coil inside by a little refrigerant line. So you install that outside of the pad. See, there, that thing. And then refrigerant line goes in the house, and there's a little box that sits on the wall and blows heat. So heat pump water heater, that's like a mini air conditioner, chills the air a little bit, and then it heats the water inside. Like we'll lower the temperature in a room by 1 degree. Not that much. Then R49 attic, R21 walls, really well insulated. We inspected everything, found lots of problems. Just so you know, like your house is your most expensive thing you'll ever buy, and yet rarely do people inspect the construction of it as it's being built. It makes such a difference in quality. It's like you wouldn't have a factory building things with literally no one there looking to see if it goes well. And that's how most houses are. It's like $400,000 later, and no one's looked to see if it's done well. And the fan, all the bathroom fans are blocked up with paper. Every single one, they left paper in them. And sometimes it taped over the fans. No one can use a bathroom fan. So it's silly, but it wasn't like it was done on purpose. It was done because no one was checking. These are larger homes, but they have the exact same 4 kilowatt system. So a little bit more efficient. These are built just like 2 years later, and already the systems have become more efficient. The houses were twice as big, and the systems were more efficient, so that there's 0 increase in the PV array. Awesome. So this is now a ducted system. This is a larger compressor outside. This is an air conditioner compressor that works in reverse. Heat pumps are air conditioners that you just work in reverse. So you work as an air conditioner like normal during the day or during the summer. And then they have a reversible pump instead of a single direction pump. They've got one more valve that controls the compression cycle the other direction, and you're done. So you take an air conditioner, you spend $200 on it, and it becomes a heat pump. A very cheap way of getting a heater. Okay, so in consumption of energy, these homes, plug loads is the #1 use. That's just something to note. At this point, it's not the water heater, it's not the space heater, it's just people's stuff, which I think is wonderful. That we've gotten to the point where it's not the space heating, it's not the water heater, it's just your toys, it's just your things. So, tiny house. My friend Martin Robbins, we streaked at May Day at CCAT, that house, on the 23 unit. So he was a co-director of that house before I moved in. 3 students a year, 1 year you live in it. So it's like a zoo. You have hundreds of students every day coming by, looking at you, living in a house. So this is his little secondary dwelling unit. It was a gas-electric mix, and he asked me, like, I only have 30 amps, which is a total of 7,200 watts. So that is about 4 hair dryers worth of power. And this is how he actually did it. It's like 30 amps. That's what a clothes dryer plug is. So you could run an entire house on a clothes dryer plug. And it's not even that efficient because it uses an electric resistance water heater. But I'm just talking about how you do it for a moment here. If you have very little power, you get a 120 volt, which is the stuff that's in the wall, normal. And you plug it in at only 8 gallons. Because anything more than 8 gallons, you have to change the voltage to 240 volt because it needs more power. Now, 8-gallon tank, is that enough for a shower? Okay, the average shower is 8 minutes long. And you use water at 2/3 hot. And a 1.5 gallon per minute shower head's out there. So it's a gallon a minute of hot water, and a shower's 8 minutes long. So you can get no more than the exact average shower out of that tank, but you can. And that's the thing, I'm saying you can do it. Not that it's awesome and perfect, because it takes 15 minutes for the shower to recover. But it's not that bad, you know? So you get an 8-gallon tank, which takes care of your shower. It's like a resistance. You can plug it in, and it's a low power demand. A 2-burner induction range. You just get countertop ones that use like half the energy of a hairdryer. And then this heat pump here, which uses 1/3 the energy of a hairdryer. Cooking is more than the space heater and cooler for this. So they can have the refrigerator, you have the TV, all those things under 30 amps, which means you didn't have to spend like $2,000 to run new electrical lines out there. We didn't have to do anything tricky with rewiring it. So that's an example of a solution that gets under the 30 amps is the least amount of power that's delivered to a trailer home park. Like the worst, crappiest, oldest trailer home park in all of California, everyone has at least 30 amps. So that's the most extreme, and you can do it. This is an example of how you would. You couldn't have a laundry dryer running at the same time as you were cooking. Like so what we did is we actually printed out stickers with the power on each one. We put a sticker on the refrigerator just to 1 amp. This is your water heater, which is it's like a 6 amp, and like the stove, which was like so we went through. So the person who's living in the house, if they blew it and they've never blown anything, they could figure out that's because I'm using my 2 highest energy devices at the same time, cooking and water heating, the 2 big ones. So. But that's how you could do it without rewiring, without anything crazy, without running gas out there. Any questions on that? Oh, the square footage of that, it could be up to 1,000 square feet, and it would all fit within that. Much more than that, and that heater wouldn't do the job.
The actual unit.
This, I think it was like 300 square feet. It was just like a big studio with a bathroom off of it. Welcome. So when you see, these are examples of that heating system. This is the cheapest thing you can do. Not the only or best, I'm saying cheapest. And the least power. This is called a packaged terminal air conditioner. Packaged because everything is done at the factory. There's no things that you do in the field other than just slide it into the wall and plug it in. So it's packaged. It's a terminal, meaning there's only one spot that the heating and cooling comes out of. A packaged terminal, one spot, air conditioner, or heat pump. So they're called P-tax. Sometimes they're called PTHPs for heat pump. But everyone calls them pretty much P-tax. And this is a P-tax that you might have seen like in someone's window. They're called window rattlers. And you might have seen something like this in a hotel. But these are nice ones, not noisy, crummy ones I'm showing you. It's an important distinction. Because most of them are like this, and they don't have internal computer controls to make the compressor quiet. But LG's come out with theirs, it's quiet. 40 decibels, library quiet. Arama, which uses Mitsubishi parts inside, similarly silent. And then my favorite, which isn't yet UL listed in the US, but it's being sold up in Canada. You guys saw the Canada presentation here a little ago. So I got turned on to this one. Uses Mitsubishi guts, the very best guts out there. It's only 4 inches deep. So it hangs on the wall, not through it. You don't cut a hole in the wall. It's just 2 6-inch ducts. So it's perfect for retrofits. And this thing uses as much power as 1/3 of a hairdryer. And it heats your whole house. So that, like I heat my whole house with as much heating and cooling comes out of that. It's 1 ton. Back in the day when ice was stored all winter in wood shaving insulated buildings, 1 ton of ice was the metric of heating and cooling. So they still do that. 12,000 BTUs is a 1 ton. That's a 1 ton quote unquote heater and cooler. And they're referring to ice. It took me a long time. Like, why do they call it tons? It doesn't weigh that. So moving up a step from, I said, cheapest, easiest, 120 volts, small amounts of power. And my favorite, which isn't actually for sale, is the one that just goes through the wall with little vents, not cutting a hole, the actual hole like that. But this one is a Nova, I-N-N-O-V-A. I should have it, it's that one, Innova. So there's LG, there's a Rama, that one right there. A Mana, which I don't have, but that's one that every hotel has. A Rama is the efficient, quiet one. A Mana is noisy and not efficient. Innova is this pretty one here that I love. And then Friedrich makes a quiet-ish version. That's like the highest quality of the window rattlers. It's not super rattly, but compared to these, that's like 10 decibels louder, which is an order of magnitude in decibels. Innova, I personally try to get it here, UL listed, because I have all these apartment complexes. So I've been racking. I was on the phone yesterday, I was on the phone the day before. I'm trying very hard to get this here in the next 2 months because I need it. Okay, this is the next step. This is a packaged ducted as opposed to ductless. So there's a duct. So it's just like the one before, but you turn on its side, and then you put a duct on it. And this thing goes through the wall, so that sits outside of your house, and you put this in a closet. And then usually you run a duct down the hallway. This is pretty apartment complex specific. You can do it in a house, but they're small, so a ton to a ton and a half. Many homes have 2 tons, 3 tons, 4 tons, 5 tons. So this is for a small unit, and I'm doing small to big, so you get where I'm going with this. So this is the next size up, and it supports ductwork. But it's cheap, because you don't have to do a compressor outside and a fan coil inside of the refrigerant line in between. It's packaged. So all that work is done in the factory, which cuts the price in half. Because the field work is expensive. Questions?
So the interest is heating or cooling the air.
Yes, heating and cooling air. Because it's sitting in the wall, it's blowing the excess heat or the excess cold outside. So the air conditioner blows the hot out. And in the wintertime, it's pulling heat from the outside air, so you'll feel cold air when you walk in front of it outside and warm air on the inside. It absorbs heat with these coils that sit outside, and then it runs the liquid that's in the coils goes to the other side of the machine, and then it heats up the air that's being sucked in a fan, and it blows up the duct and through the ductwork. So it's a through-wall packaged product. There's only 2 manufacturers, Friedrich and General Electric. They're not very popular, but they're cheaper than doing other things, like putting a compressor up on the roof of your apartment complex, running the refrigerant down 2 stories to a fan coil, or just cut a hole in the wall, and then you're done. So you can see how you can have a lot of savings, structural engineering savings, siting savings, refrigerant installation, electrical wiring. Yes, sir. Yeah, you could use this to replace a gas furnace, as you could any of these devices. But the question is, where is your gas furnace? Because it might be hard for you to put that thing. Your furnace almost certainly isn't right next to an exterior wall. They're frequently hidden inside of a building, and they take air from the inside. So you wouldn't be able to stick that thing where your furnace is. You would probably use a split system where the big compressor sits outside, runs a little refrigerant line, like 1/2-inch copper line, 1/4-inch copper line, to the fan coil. This is the fan coil part at the top. So your refrigerant line will come in and it'll heat up the air and it'll blow it to your house. And that, instead of being a compressor, that part will sit outside and it'll just run refrigerant to the fan coil. That's what you'll probably be doing with your ducted house. Unless you do the cheap solution, which is you make zone heating and cooling in your house. And you put that one in the master bedroom and that one in the living room. And you start being able to say, I'd like this part of the house to be this temperature, this part to be this temperature. It's not the same as ducted, which does the whole house to the same temperature. But you might say it's actually nicer and cheaper. Yes, ma'am. Yes, radiant is right after this one. That's the radiant heat. So in price, we're going, that's the most expensive. Now this is a little bit more expensive because the compressor sits outside and it runs refrigerant to each one of these. You have one or that or that. All these things are the other side of the refrigerant line that comes from here. That's on the wall, that's on the floor, that's on the ceiling, that's on the floor, that's in the ceiling. You can run 2 or 3 little ducts off of it, 8 feet. So it's a ducted version of it. Most of these are ductless, no duct attached to it. It's just dumping heat or cool where it is. On the ceiling, and you can get up to 5 spots running off of one compressor with those little ports on the side. One compressor will run the refrigerant line to each of those little fan coils. That's how you do it if you're middle class in China. Like, that is the housing, heating, and cooling strategy in China. You have a house, and it's going to have a compressor outside that's going to run some refrigerant inside 2 different spots. It's the modern way that hundreds of millions of people are heating and cooling their homes. Heat pumps are big in China and Japan, and just generally in Asia. Anywhere where they didn't have cheap fossil fuels, they went electric. You in the back? Okay, so what's the maximum square footage that those 5 could cover? This device is going to be limited to about 4 tons, and 4 tons is only relative to the house's like insulation and climate. So you could say 4 tons handles almost all normal houses. So that would be fair to say, like 2,000 to 3,000 square feet of 4 tons would definitely handle. But if you got a bigger house than that, then you need to do maybe 2 of them. You know, yes. Okay.
I take it the heat pumps that refrigerate management becomes really important, right? You don't want the refrigerants.
Yeah, let's talk about refrigerant. So I haven't gotten to the water heaters, have I? Okay, well, let me just say, in this technology, this is going to have 1.5 pounds of refrigerant running through it. You weigh it. Now, if you had a water heater, or if this leaked catastrophically, all of it, huge disaster, all this is like 2,000 global warming potential chemical, that entire leak of 1.5 pounds is equal to running your water heater with its inherent methane leak for about 3 years. So disaster versus just what you're doing right now. So you're rarely going to have a disaster with refrigerant leaking. Not like it doesn't happen, but it's not a common scenario. But all of you are running gas, I bet, in your house right now, with an inherent leak associated with it. That is a disaster. As soon as you can stop, the better. So refrigerant leaks are a significant issue in grocery stores. Grocery stores lose 50% of the refrigerant a year because it's all field-installed leaky refrigerant lines in the grocery stores, the freezers, and the cheese chillers, and the wine chillers, all that. That's the big refrigerant leak in the United States, grocery stores. And we can all do something about that, right? Our grocery stores. And a solution, by the way, is in Japan. They do heat pumps, and then they run water, not refrigerant, around the grocery stores. And it's okay if water leaks. So for radiant floors, this is the heat pump that can heat a water heater, and it can go heat your floor. So it does both. Phoenix, Chiltrex, Aramec are all brands that look like this. You know, it's got a fan, got a compressor thingy inside, and then it's going to run hot water and cold water. Super efficient. So, you know, radiant floors are lower temperature, and the lower the temperature, usually the more efficient it is, less work to be done. Radiant floors are the most expensive way to heat and cool a house. So if you put $3,000 into a PTAC, you're going to put $26,000 into a radiant floor. And I love radiant floors like everybody. I do have a downside. They have a lag time. It can take a day to cool off the cement slab. So if you want your house to be one temperature and then you'd like it to be a little bit different, I like it cool when I'm gone. Or I like it. Like, you just can't change the temperature of your house very quickly. It might take a day. So so things to think about. This is, I should probably reverse that because that is more expensive to do radiant floors. But ducting, which is a little bit less expensive than radiant, this is very common. So you're going to find lots of manufacturers making these. Everyone makes them. Carrier and Goodman and Rheem, Maytex, go down the list. These are all the same things. And then there's the ducting inside. And I just want you to see all the bends. This is why ducting takes a large, powerful fan, and it takes a larger compressor, because there's just so much friction and so much loss in every little crack and joint. They're leaky, and they take a lot of work to push air through. So they are nice because they get everything, your whole house is conditioned, but there's downsides. Oh yes, you could do a heat pump and radiators. Absolutely. It is a lot cheaper. And you can control the thermostat on the radiator, turn off the water to it so it doesn't radiate the heat. Yep. Way more controllable to put in radiators. That's sort of like European style. American style really has been like cement slabs. That's a big thing in this country. Ductwork? You probably don't use your old ductwork, but you might. The reason why you might not is because these big ducts are for furnaces which burn at 3,400 degrees Fahrenheit for 15 minutes, or else they melt the engine. So they go and then they turn off. And this, that size for that kind of like heat, and then turn off. The heat pumps, they just operate at a lower temperature, slow and steady, and so you have smaller ducts for them. And these bigger ducts will work, but you might lose a lot of heat along the way, and so you probably upsize the compressor significantly, more than you would need to otherwise with smaller ducts, because the ducts are specific to the system. Water heaters. Any other heating and cooling questions before? Yes, you in the back.
We live in a 1907 house, ducted.
1907 house, ducted.
I've had 2 contractors come out to ask about heat pumps.
Yes.
One was just not practical except in construction with solar panels. The other one said, oh, no problem with all construction if you have solar panels. We've tried to get solar panels and they say, well, fine, we'll just have to chop down the trees around your house. We haven't been willing to do it. So,
yeah, why would you do that?
Electricity. Yeah, so what do we do?
So, well, you don't need solar to make a heat pump work. And in many ways, economically, the economic argument between gas and electricity is really complicated. It changes every 15 miles in California to get to a utility tariff. So there's like, PG&E has like 20 different utility schedules. It doesn't make a lot of sense right on the Bay Area. Like you're going to spend at least $100 more a year to go all electric right here in the Bay Area. Whereas if you just go out into the hills a little bit, you get twice as much electricity in your baseline, and all of a sudden it's cheaper to go all electric. It's just PG&E. They've never tried to make electrification friendly rates, and we don't have them. They're not designed for it. They don't really make sense. So, I mean, differently put, these are solar heaters. The air is warmed by the sun. These take the heat out of the air. This is like a solar thermal water collector in essence, just crumpled into a ball with a fan on it. So a water heater has refrigerant called propylene glycol. That's the fluid that circulates around. This has R134A or R410A. Both are refrigerants. They have the properties of absorbing heat and letting it go. So they're the same. Solar plate collector has a flat plate. It's a flat thing with tubes in it. And here, the tubes are there. They're just smaller, and there's a fan blowing over it. Instead of making it sort of unfurled in front of the sun, it makes it smaller with a fan blowing over. And the refrigerant is important. When you go from liquid to gas, phase change, huge amounts of energy to boil. That spot in between water and gas takes tons of energy, and you can store energy, essentially. You can just keep on shoving energy into it while it's still liquid, and then go move it around and make it a gas and make it release its heat. Going from liquid to gas is not something solar thermal collectors do. That is a way, essentially, of storing energy and delivering it in. So it's a chemical property, and it's around that moment between liquid and gas. So this is a solar thermal collector. It is an extremely efficient version of that, with a fan and with better refrigerant, and a way of using the refrigerant where you go liquid to gas instead of just keeping it liquid. But the heat source is the air, which is heated by the sun. It's just a crumpled up solar thermal collector, way more efficient. So you should put it in because it's a solar thermal collector. If you're worried about the extra $100, I mean, think about what's going to cost to chop down your trees. So, right? So you should just go for it. And they are good for new construction. They're good for retrofits. They're an air conditioner. Whoever says like, oh, air conditioners are only good for new construction, you would never put an air conditioner into an existing home. Stupid. So yeah, they work great for homes. They're just a reversible air conditioner, literally. It's all there's $200 more than an air conditioner, and then it turns reverse. Yes. Uh-huh. Do you have a sense of like the ballpark figure for adding one of those? Yeah. So this thing, you know, these are $1,000, and they're going to cost you probably another $1,000 to install. So this is like a $2 to $3 grand solution. This is probably like a $6 to $12 grand solution. This is for one head, it's about $5,000. For two heads, it's $8,000. For three heads, it's like $11,000. Heads being these little things here. Pardon me. This is cheap, but the radiant floor is expensive. So this is like, yeah, a couple of grand for the thing. And then this is going to be in the $12,000 to $30,000 range to redo all the ducts and put a compressor outside. And if you were to only replace the compressor, it's going to be like $8 grand, but you're not actually supposed to leave ducts in place. I already mentioned like there's challenges with ducts not being quite the right size. So that's the pricing sense. And you guys, if you're not aware of on-bill repayments or property assessed clean energy, there's a way to finance the energy efficiency retrofits off your property tax bill. So you invest, and anyone who buys a house after still pays the refinancing, so you don't lose your investment. There's no split incentive. The retrofit's paid for by whomever's living there. Yep. Radiators. The most expensive tradesperson on a job is the plumber. So anytime you're trying to deliver anything through plumbing, you've asked the most expensive person to show up. And so it's not cheap to deliver heating and cooling through water, period. It's not prohibitive, but the cheapest way to deliver energy is through electricity. And so that is why this system is cheapest. You run electricity to it, and there's no other installation other than just hanging it there. And the transmission of electricity is the cheapest way to get energy from one place to another versus water or refrigerant or air for that matter. I can't quite hear you. This is about $1,000 to buy one of these things, and it's going to be about that much to install unless you're hanging it off a wall. But this thing is more expensive at about $2,000 versus these at like $1,200. So really, you're going to be in the range of $2 grand to $3 grand. It's enough to do about 1,000 square foot house. Yep, 1,200 square foot house. Depends on the insulation. Don't forget. Yes, ma'am. Yes. Yes. Right. Yeah. No, I would abandon it. Well, it's very difficult to, you can't rip out walls. So things you can do. You can put in 4-inch ducts, little and 2-inch ducts, even mini ducts, and get a fan coil that pushes air really fast. So those are called mini. So instead of having a 6-inch or 8-inch, you can have a small one, and you can fish it through the existing ducts. So what you get is like whistling air because it's pushing air through this little tiny thing. So you have to like put the little registers up and around so you don't get like blowing air in your face. It's very powerful. But that's one retrofit solution, is putting 4-inch or 2-inch ducts in the same spot. And that is why ductwork is so expensive. Like it's a very expensive thing to get ductwork people to show up and do this stuff. So I like abandoning ductwork and moving to electricity delivery and heating the energy to a spot and then just picking it up from the air there. Yes. What's that? Maintenance. A heat, an air conditioner or a refrigerator. What's the maintenance on your refrigerator? How long does it last? Does anyone here actually maintain their refrigerator? I mean, just honestly. So, I mean, how many of you guys have gone and cleaned the coils every year, right? So, I'll get you next. So compressors can last about 50 years, and they will last as long as you like to maintain them. So 10, 20 years is probably a good guess. 15 years is definitely a good, reasonable guess. They can load 1970s to now. I have some lots of heat pumps that are 40 years old. They're not efficient anymore, but they're still doing the thing. There was a question, you, with the yellow glasses? Oh, good on you. You know, good on you. I don't want to. Yes, Sam.
Any suggestions for space heaters?
Like electric resistant space heater replacement?
With efficient space heaters.
This is the smallest compressor space heater that you can get. These things, that type of product. Right. Yeah, so well, see, because the heat pump uses the heat of the air around it, if you're trying to use it in a room, you're just taking heat out of the room and putting it back in. It doesn't, all you're really doing is heating up the room with electric resistance elements running the, so you have to pull the air from someplace else. You have to get the heat from outside of the room, which inherently is going to mean the smallest hole you can pretty much cut is that, or through the wall, or like a 1-inch hole for the refrigerant line that could be delivering heating and cooling. But there's some thing to do. And electric resistance heating is not a terrible thing if you got 100% renewable energy for small amounts of it. It is still a lot of energy. There's so many questions. Hot water. We're going to go to hot water next. I'm going to be here until they close the place, so I'm more than happy to work through HVAC solutions. So the heat pump water heaters out there in the market, most of them look just like this. Rheem and A.O. Smith are the two big manufacturers. Bradford White is here as well as a third-tier manufacturer. Great also, though. I want you to see, these are about 370% efficient. So 1 unit of electricity and gathers 3.7 units. So you can think about that math. 1 unit of electric resistance energy. If you burnt it in a toaster, it give you this much heat. If you run it through a heat pump, it gathers 3.7 times that amount of heat by running the compressor. It gathers that energy from the air. The heat is in the air, and it's just running a heat gathering device. It's like a little filter feeder. I'm going to do a biologist like me, but big little critters in the water that go just filter a little bit to go. So the gas equivalent is the same price. I want you to see that. 67% efficient, $1,223. 370% efficient, that's the Rheem, $1,289. These are functionally the same price, but this is using 4 times, what was it, 5 times as much energy. This 90% efficient, these are the on-demands, and these are all in that same price range. It's not cheaper to go with gas and purchasing it. It's obviously way more energy intensive. So these are 50-gallon products. I'm going to show you some things that aren't here yet that are smaller. Just letting you know, right now you have a choice of a 50-gallon or an 80-gallon. That's what there are.
I understand that some of these have electric resistance backup.
Yes.
And functionally, did those come on like when our climate here?
Mm-hmm. So I have like 400 apartments that I'm monitoring second by second on how their water energy consumption is going, second by second. For years now, I can say that the electric resistance element, so these things, they run a 500-watt compressor, and then they've got a 4,500-watt electric resistance element that essentially does the same job as the 500-watt compressor. When you have 3 showers in a row and you can't keep up with the 4th one, when it's 30 degrees outside, these compressors are not designed for cold climates. So below 40 degrees, they start kicking in electric resistance. So they want to run a compressor mode during the day, and if you're using a lot of water at night, it'll kick in electric resistance. We found that they're very energy intensive. We've studied it. It doesn't look like people ever really needed that water. Like electric resistance added in heat, but the temperature of the tank wasn't cold enough that it would have needed it. So we're running them now on compressor only mode in 62 apartments to say, like, do we really need it? Maybe you need it other places. Does California need it? I don't think so. So they do run, and we don't seem to need them unless you're like a 6-person household that takes 4 showers in a row.
And you can turn this on.
And you can turn it on to eco mode, compressor only mode, and then you're just running 1/3 of a hairdryer's worth of energy to the whole hot water. Yeah. 1,800 watts is a refrigerator. These are 500 watts.
How is
Or is that a hairdryer?
How is the practical reliability of these things? I've heard not so great things about them.
Oh, great. I mean, these are 15-year assets for my apartment complexes. They're supposed to last 15 years. They come with a 10-year parts warranty. First generation 2011 GE products were terrible, failed tons. The moved manufacturer to Tennessee, solved all the issues. Other manufacturers have entered the market. GE was sorted at the beginning. And so Ream and A.O. Smith, terrific dependability, had no issues. More than 1,000 deployed now. Yes, sir. I'll tell you why. There aren't any smaller than 50 gallons right now. There is a standard that the federal government says you have to deliver 49 to 51 gallons in the first hour. So the idea is you're supposed to turn the thing on full blast, and in an hour, it's supposed to be able to make 51 gallons of hot water. These things have a 500-watt compressor, so that's less than your toaster is using when you're making your toast somewhere. And even though it's collecting all that energy from the air, it still can't do it fast. So they make all of that 51 gallons being met with storage, whereas a gas tank has literally 10 times as much heat energy coming out when it's turning on. So these are 4,000 BTU compressors, and a 40-gallon tank is a 40,000 BTU water heater. So it's 1/10 as much energy. So the reason they do it is because they have to store the water to meet the code. They can't burn energy in the moment to get that 51 gallons in 1 hour. So that standard you can meet a 37-gallon standard. But heat pump water heaters have less than 1% of the marketed water heaters in our country. And the manufacturers are so pissed about that after almost a decade of pulling them out and getting Energy Star awards and no one using them. Because at 50 gallons, they only make sense for new construction. And we only build 1% of our housing stock a year. So actually, they're doing just fine in terms of their product is only for new construction, pretty much, because a 50-gallon tank doesn't make much sense in most people's homes. It's fine in a garage, it's fine in a basement, but anywhere else, it's significantly bigger than a 40-gallon. So what's not here yet, but will be here within the next year, is the 20-gallon, 30-gallon, and 40-gallon wall hungs. That's the compressor on top. Ariston is an Italian company, and Europe is really big in heat pumps. You didn't know, they're everywhere when you go around. All sorts of old castles have a heat pump on the wall now. And so this, like the 50-gallon product, everyone makes that. And this is the 50-gallon product with the compressor that sits outside and delivers hot water to it. So that compressor then can be paired with smaller wall tanks, or you can stick that one, which has the compressor on it, on the wall. So Ariston makes this. They just bought 51% of HTP, which is an American manufacturer of water heaters, the big one. So HTP is now showing up at all these conferences saying, hey, we've got this really awesome product over in Europe. We need to get it UL listed here. What do you guys think would be the one that we should get UL listed? Because it costs 50 grand and it takes half a year to get UL listed for every single one that we do. So they're trying to be strategic. And the 40-gallon product is what everyone in the community is like, obviously the 40-gallon, everyone has 40 gallons, so get a 40-gallon. So that's where we're almost at. We have 50-gallon products, and they're going to bring out a 40-gallon, knowing full well it meets the smaller federal standard. And people need to understand that means you get 2 showers in a row, not 3. 2.5 showers. Yes, ma'am, in the back. Well, I don't represent anyone. Oh yeah, there are energy consultants or our industry. So Title 24 energy consultants. You have to follow the code, which is called Title 24, the law, and you have to do that software run every time you pull a new building permit. And if you guys actually got permits for your retrofits, 90% of Californians don't, so not holding anything. If you got a building permit for this stuff, then you would have to also do an energy model. And those people, the Title 24 energy consultants, are in our state, the industry group that makes recommendations about representing products. Yes.
So when all the green building certification stuff started out, the on-demand water heating was the way to go.
Yeah.
You didn't say anything about on-demand earlier.
Well, an on-demand, if it was electric, resistance takes 60 amps. And 60 amps is like my house had 100 amps. So to put in an electric resistance on demand is massive, massive amount of energy. My first all-electric development, I wanted to put in electric water heaters. Heat pumps didn't exist. It was 2008. So they didn't exist, but they weren't here in the States. So I chose an on-demand electric resistance. The electrical engineer came back and said, that takes your 200 amp panel for the building and turns it into a 600 amp panel for the building. That's going to then go upstream to the transformer. So you're triggering $100,000 right now by putting electric resistance water heaters into this 35-unit apartment complex. Oh, I see. So the efficiency of power demand makes a big difference to all the power infrastructure. And these are very low power. So I'm into this one because it fits where the on-demand gas system would be, but it uses a compressor, so low power, use the amount of power that's available in the wall, not requiring literally a larger electric cable and panel capacity and transformer capacity. Yes, sir.
Really? Yeah. So we expecting 40 gallon one next year, you said?
Yes, this 2019 is the year of the 40 gallons. You can put this anywhere. If it's inside your space, it's going to lower the temperature of the room by running a couple hours a day. And it's going to lower the temperature a degree or two, depending upon the size of the room. It doesn't run a lot of the day, a couple hours, 24 hours in a day. But it will cool it off. And if you put it anywhere else, it's just fine. So they're flexible. Nope. No, we've put many of these into the attics. The only real issue is you've got a lot of water up there. It's heavy. Yes.
And if you're adding solar,
Yes, adding solar.
how much extra power you need?
Good question. Okay, so the metric of a kilowatt, which is 2 sheets of plywood worth of solar panels. In the Bay Area, 2 sheets of plywood worth of solar panels, 1 kilowatt. That produces 1,450 kilowatt hours a year. And this will use about 1,400 kilowatt hours a year. So it's about 1 kilowatt. Some of them use 1,000, some of them use 1,500. There's differences in efficiency. Yes, they're programmable, so you can do load shifting, and you can do, there's a lot of controls on them that allow that. And you can, the Ream one, for instance, has a proprietary Wi-Fi connection, so you can control it on your phone if you like. Yes. So you would not put a water heater of any type outside of a house in cold climates. I'm from Wisconsin. Your water heater has to live in a basement. It might need an electric resistance element next to it, so the pipes don't freeze on super duper cold nights. So water is the thing you have to be aware of. You can't freeze the water. The heat pump is fine. It can go down to negative whatever, but the water can't. Totally fine for Berkeley. Yeah, we never have frozen pipes in Berkeley. Yeah, these ones are 2240 volts. So what's happened is that I work in retrofits and apartment complexes. So all 70 of these things I gotta get done at a time. I'm so frustrated because I can never find a 40-gallon replacement. So a year ago, I started a program, which now all the utilities have thrown in on. We had a conference, we had weekly meetings around the Retrofit Ready 40-gallon tank. That is a 120 volts, so it plugs into the wall. It's a 500-watt product, so it doesn't need to be wired for anything. You can plug it into any room with no rewiring because it uses as much as like, well, 1/3 of a hairdryer. Like there's no laws around where you plug in a hairdryer. So that product, which is technically totally possible, like they don't have to change their products except from 240 volt to 120 volt. They got to do that. They have to say, what are we going to do about this 51-gallon thing? They're like, well, why don't you meet the 37-gallon standard then? And people just decide if they want it or not. Okay, so that's how these things are shifting. You know, Rheem and A.O. Smith, they are gas water heater companies primarily, and they've been really moaning about how not successful these have been going. So they've been reluctant to invest in them. Japanese and Chinese companies have not been reluctant. Like, they understand what the market is and they're running for it. So not to dog them, because they're very active participants. Rheem and A.O. Smith and HTP and Bradford White. But I'm seeing Sandon, the Japanese company, immediately jump on it. I'm seeing HTP, Ariston, the Italian company, run for it. You know, they have a different sense of the market. So, yes. Well, he signed a raft of laws. I'm not sure which one, but there's one specific, like 1475. There's one that's $200 million. It's around retrofitting existing buildings. It's rebates for that. That's huge. And if you guys don't realize this, the entire regulatory agencies in California are electrification oriented now. All of them. Every single proceedings now, they're declaring like we have an all-electric future. It's the first page, the first document. It's in the summary. It's what everyone's saying up there. They're only trying to figure out how fast and how to pay for it. Like it is a full speed, full court effort right now in electrification, and we're getting there. So on the water heater thing, we're going to have a 40-gallon product in a year. There'll probably be 2 manufacturers at least at that point, probably Sandon and Ariston. Oh no, those are great. Those are the heat pump water heaters that I put into apartment complexes every day. They are a 50-gallon tank, and they can be 80-gallon tanks also. Right, they're 22 inches wide, and they're about as tall as I am. Oh yeah, there you go. What's it? Say what? Yes. You can install them everywhere where the water heater is right now, because it's the water that's the issue, not the location.
What's your take on whether to wait for this appliance to fail or to replace it?
Okay, so do it immediately. You know, we should have been doing this decades ago. My 7th grade science book went into detail on climate change. You know, I went to my first Earth Day in 1990, and I met my wife on the 2000 Earth Day. And so I am watching my entire life watching species go extinct. Like, I totally boo-hoo-hoo about all sorts of things. My mom and dad used to read me about Lonesome George, the last of this kind of butterfly. Like, that gets me really deep down inside. So, and on top of that, my mother-in-law died in the Santa Rosa fires, which was a climate change-induced event. She died of smoke inhalation, not in flames. But it was a horrible death, as you can imagine. She lingered in the hospital for a couple of months. It was a veil of tears, for sure. And it was just around so much smoke that her lungs, she couldn't stop coughing, and so she sort of expired at the dinner table, and then they put a tube in her throat for a couple of months, and then she died. So, on a personal level, having had my house nearly blow up with the gas leak only last year and a half ago, having my mother-in-law die 2 months later, like, this has nearly killed my family, and it has killed one of our loved ones. It's just too much for me to say, like, we are past that line. Like, I don't get to see the coral reefs I used to swim in Jamaica as a kid. They're gone. They've been bleached out. You know, 1/3 of the coral reef of Australia just bleached out last year. That's not coming back. We just lost 1/3 of the barrier reef last year. 1/3 of it's gone now in 1 year. So because methane is the single most powerful thing you can do or stop doing, because it has that, you know, 100 times the impact of CO2, has 100 times the impact of burning it every week, you can't go fast enough. We've already lost so much. There isn't, like, we should have done it so much longer ago in order for us to be okay. Yes, in the back there?
Well, Dave notes, I understand that from my preliminary investigation, rebates that the rebate system is such that it's gas system, not gas to electric.
Yeah, there's a new money that's being allocated from cap and trade funds so that we cannot be required to do gas to gas. And there's some proceedings to the CPC called the three-prong analysis to force gas companies to essentially rebate electrification. And, yeah, oh yeah, it's coming, my friends. I'll do the presentation, a couple more slides here. There's the hot tubs and swimming pools version of it. Just want you to know, like they're great at that, by the way, because it's like 80-degree, 90-degree water, super chill, easy thing. So if you had a COP of say 4 with the water heater for your house, these have COPs of 8 to 13 because they're operating in the summertime. They're only raising the water to 90 degrees, not 140. So incredible efficiency versus burning gas at 60 to 90% efficiency. You know, you get 600 to 1300% efficiency off the running heat pump. It's just collecting the heat from the air. Yeah. So who here is a fan of the Great British Bake Off? Yeah, isn't it great? I love it. So they're all of them are always working on induction ranges. They don't really feature that much, but those are made by Schott. So it's a high quality German manufacturer of induction. All the chefs of our planet now are being taught in kitchens like this because, in part, it's so expensive putting gas into a teaching kitchen. It's expensive for everyone. And formaldehyde comes rushing off of gas stoves. So exposure levels during an hour of cooking poison children with cancerous formaldehyde and nitrous oxides, in the wintertime. So summer is blue, white is wintertime. These are the hazardous levels. I mean, these are 6,000 California homes are being studied. So nitrous oxides, everyone's getting polluted year-round inside their home. That causes asthma. It's about 12% of all asthma children is caused by gas stoves, according to the Australian government just came out with a study. Specifically, 12% of asthma, at least, is caused by stoves. So that's your nitrous oxide. That's your asthma. And here's your carbon monoxide. So there's like 5,000 people a year in the United States that die from carbon monoxide exposure, including ovens that are left on. But here's the bad one, formaldehyde. And so what you're seeing, this line, all of these households are always, year-round, a significant portion of them are pouring formaldehyde. Formaldehyde is heavier than air. Formaldehyde is one of the 400 different combustion byproducts of natural gas. It goes through hundreds of chemical reactions as it turns into flame. Some of them aren't completed, and so they come pouring on. Formaldehyde is heavier than air. My brother had testicular cancer when he was 21. I was 16. It was one of the reasons I became a biologist. One of the reasons I stopped eating conventional food when I was 20. Only eat organic food since then, 43. Testicular cancer specifically is caused by exposure to teratogenic, which means monster child. Teratogen is a monster in Latin. Teratogenic poisonous compounds when you're in the womb. That could be pesticides. That could be PCBs from the power line insulators. And it's definitely formaldehyde. If you're cooking and you're pregnant, you're exposing the fetus to formaldehyde. And formaldehyde causes genetic damages that shows up later, most commonly as leukemia in children. Girl diagnosed with strep throat dies of leukemia 1 week later. It's usually you're dead within 3 weeks of having symptoms. Child leukemia is so fast. You have a sick kid, looks like a normal sick, and then the kid's dead. And I had lots of headlines that just freaked me out. So I got 3 little kids. 4-year-old daughter diagnosed, dies 11 days later. His body can take it. Teenager dies 1 week after being diagnosed with leukemia, hadn't shown no symptoms. This is how it runs. You're in the hospital for a couple weeks and then you're dead. And it is formaldehyde. It's the #1 source of formaldehyde in your house. It's what's pouring off your gas stove. It's heavier than air. It pools around your feet where it infects your pets and your children. And if you breathe it in, you might be like my brother, nearly dead at 21. Like it's metastasized from his testicles in his whole body. So, there's a lot of reasons why electric stoves are awesome. They're faster. They're more controllable. Chefs love them. Julia Child, she only ever cooked on electric resistance, entire career. Yeah, I love that woman. 6'1", like after my own heart. Yeah. Thomas Keller, that's the French Laundry, did a remodel, all electric, gorgeous new kitchen. You can see lots of videos of it. Cafe Ficelle, our best bakery in California, all electric bakery down in Ventura. This guy, he's on the team of the Fête de Pain, the bread party. You go to France for 3 weeks and you are part of an international competition to make some bread. And you know, All Electric Kitchen, Wolfgang Puck, Anthony Bourdain, rest in peace. These people are all leading voices on how do you do it right. And they're all trying to say, like, induction is better for all the reasons why chefs want it. Two that you might not be familiar. Induction cooks at like 80 to 90% efficiency. Gas is at like 25 to 40. So you put at least twice as much heat into a kitchen if you're cooking with gas. And kitchens are miserable places if you're actually producing food for a restaurant or a cafeteria. They're so damn hot and humid. So when you go all electric, as they did, that's one of the things that he points out. It's like it made the kitchen so much easier to work in. It's almost a third, 2/3 less heat. It's much less air conditioning at the dump in, so much less venting as the gas is off production or just water vapor, not a ton of carcinogenic byproducts. So I encourage you guys to all get your first one, spend 50 bucks, spend $100 tops, get just a single burner and play with it. Give it away, I gave these away for Christmas, 50 bucks. Then this is your play device, like 2 burners. I have 2 of these in my house, 2 different cooking stations, and they use as much energy as like the blender. So I don't have to retrofit my kitchen. I can just plug them into my wall sockets, and I've got 2 cook stations, so my wife and I can cook at the same time, or my kids can cook when I can cook. Actually much more humane. Took out the gas stove, put some countertops there, put my 2-burner range on top, put a there. And I have a countertop oven. I have this one here, French doors. And I bake. It's a convection oven, it's a warmer. So that's how I've done it, is I haven't retrofitted the wiring in my kitchen. I got two 2-burners, and then I got a small oven. It's big enough for a chicken, and my mom does the Thanksgiving turkey in her oven. She lives next door, and she's got the big one. And she has this, the KitchenAid. I bought her a double door one. It's like love you mom kind of thing, and she bakes nonstop for us. So that was about $2,800. It's awesome. It's worth noting that some of these are made in the same, like LG makes a few different things, and they rebrand them. And LG is not quite as cool as some of the other brands. KitchenAid had its own factory, or maybe that. So we did a lot of research on what we thought was high quality. Samsung is fun because they have fake flame. They light up little blue LEDs, so it looks like you're burning. It's really, so I love that. It's the only one that does it. It's so brilliant. And then these are inset counter types. You know, this really, all these are really fun to clean off because you just wipe. There's no surface, just wipe off.
Question. Why do you push only induction with the regular ceramic?
So why do I push induction instead of ceramic countertops, electric resistance, halogen bulbs, or a lot of different ways of doing it? Because it's faster and more controllable. It does require you to have a magnetic pan or pot. So like a fancy one, Summit is one of my favorite brands of all, and they actually come with a 7-piece pan and pot set. Like you get it, and then they throw that in. So I get them because a lot of people don't like electric resistance. So I'm trying to help them see, like, well, these are the best, but you could do something else and have it be good.
And you can test them with a magnet.
I'm almost done. Okay, so this, just so you guys get a sense of what's going on here, briefly. Modern electric fireplaces put up mist and they light it with LEDs. So it looks like flames and smoke. I grew up on wood stove in rural Wisconsin. So Dimplex and Modern Flames are both the 2 leading brands of that. But you can also get electric resistance outdoor heaters. So like the Salesforce Tower in San Francisco, it's not green. It says that it is one gigantic gas flame inside. They use gas for everything, including on the 35th floor, according to one article, they've got gas fireplaces. So I think, because it's probably the largest gas-using device in all of San Francisco, literally, we should probably, it's the largest building west of Mississippi, we should probably go in and electrify that building. Specifically, like, let's target it. And so that would mean getting these fancy electric fireplaces in, so people don't mind that it's not a gas fireplace. I, by the way, hate gas fireplaces. Wood is what I grew up with. That's so funny. People burn gas that looks like wood. Like wood. Yes. I don't know anyone personally who has one installed. So I've seen them at trade shows, and they really do, whisk like smoky light, and then they blow heat at you. So it looks way cooler than the old-fashioned electric resistance. And then, like, for partiers, you can get really fun colors too. You can get like these cool jets. Like, there's things there that aren't normal for anyone. So, it's like that's the upside, the positive. Okay, so I want you to see this. This is most important for me. Okay, people blame each other for who is wasteful with their energy. That happens all the time. Low-income people get shit non-stop. I work with low-income people, just so you know, they're more frugal than anyone else. And I've charted this out. Incomes in people's low-income households, the richer people in the apartment complex use more energy than the poor people in the apartment complex. Really easy to see that income equals energy consumption. You're all way more energy consuming than most low-income households. Now that said, the #1 use in low-income households is plug loads. Sometimes it's water heating, it's usually plug loads. Now this is in the middle of the night and no one's awake. Now notice this. This is like 10, and this person's at 350. This is an entire year's worth of data, 2 different apartment complexes worth of people. Each line is an apartment. The orange line is the average for King City's apartments. The blue line is the average for the Oxnard apartments, built the same year, same developer, etc., same monitoring. And what you're going to see is that these 2 apartment complexes behave identically. Like, oh yeah, modeling works. If I had a model that predicted that line or that line, I'd be super satisfied. The average is the black line in between. But look at the massive range. I mean, that is more than 10-fold from lowest to highest every day, always. You're going to always find this with every load. It's at least 3 to 4-fold between you and your neighbor on anything. People have a personal energy metabolism. It changes when you're young, when you have a higher energy metabolism, and you kind of smooth out in your middle ages, and then it goes down precipitously. You start cooking only 10% as much. You start bathing only once a week. My mom's totally proud. Once a week. And so the personal energy metabolism, these are all families. So notice though that essentially the worst thing that's happening is when they're not on. All of these little bumps are really determined by where you started, which is the phantom loads, the things you can't figure out how to turn off. And specifically, those are the audio-visual system and the home office. It's not your cell phone wall warts. It's nothing in your bathroom. Don't ever look at your cell phone and think, oh, I gotta do something about that. That's not how it works. It is about your TV, your set-top boxes, your audio, music, the printer, all those things. Many of them have never had an Energy Star label option, and there's been no design for efficiency as a consequence, because Energy Star really changes manufacturing. Everyone wants to label if it's available. So you're seeing a highly unregulated load type. And people are not being, like the highest user, that person actually does almost nothing in a day, other than just live in their house with what's going on. They're not bad in their behavior. It's the stuff that's bad. It really is. Like, you can pick any single line here, and you see that people aren't doing much during the day with what they got, other than own it. And so, to focus on, like, what would I do with these people? Would I shame them? And I have the ability. I have metering and lights, and I've mailed everyone letters for a whole year. And some people got shamed and compared against the names, all that stuff. And this graph helped me understand, like, I think we can find those people and replace their stuff. They're not good or bad. They're just the rest of everybody else, just people. But they got stuff that's a problem. And I'm positive that they don't know it. None of us, me included, has a very good idea of what's happening in their homes with energy. So this is not shaming. It's just about fixing stuff, not people. So yes, then is a what? A small amount. This would be an example of a household that only really does the fridge, and then they're using energy during the day. So and this is plug and yeah. We backed out the refrigerator actually, so there's no refrigerators in here. Just so you know. Yes. Totally not a problem. It could use a tiny amount. If you feel the box that's a little bit warm, that'll tell you it's using a tiny amount. But that's like 4% of the energy plugged into your house is those little things. And they've been made into a big deal in all sorts of publications. But fact-based, they're not an issue, particularly because they're powering batteries. Batteries use anything with a battery is super duper efficient. And they're powering a battery, and they themselves, it's almost nothing. But your cable boxes, those you might literally be able to fry an egg on top. Yes? Yeah? Almost all your what? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of devices that stay on when they're off. Having the ability to turn things off is helpful, but it relies upon good behavior. And really, most people aren't good. I mean, how many of you guys have changed your behavior because your spouse insisted on it? Right? So, you know, and it's like that. Like really, because it's the difference of like pennies or $1 a month, that's not the right way to approach your relationship. Still there? It died. Okay, well this is 2 slides here. This is to show you if you do a zero to energy house, it's equal to 57 Gorgosaurs worth of fossil fuel. So all those bodies, it's 170 tons. That's the amount of fossil fuels you burn over about 25 years. Okay, 25 years of fossil fuels, that's 57 Gorgosaurs. Different ways of looking at it is that 1 kilowatt is 55 square feet. So that's a kilowatt, it's 2 sheets of plywood. 1 kilowatt is going to produce about 1,400 kilowatt hours. The formula for zero energy is 3 kilowatts of PV plus 0.25 per occupant. And this is for new construction. And then I got pricing, like zero energy means $5,100 plus $425 for the contractor. This is what it costs the contractor, and this is what it costs you, about twice as much. So I wanted to give you guys some numbers to get a sense of it. And last but not least, more adventurous PV. This is on over someone's swimming pool. This is PV. So these windows are PV windows. That's a skylight of PV. PV skylight, PV windows. So I've got, thank you, there's efficiencies here. You can see the efficiency drops. If you go up and down, it drops by about 30% in its ability to put out power. Now keep in mind, solar has dropped in price about 80% in the last 6 years. And so putting it on its side, while it costs more to get the job done, it's still cheap compared to even the zero energy housing I was doing when I started it, and it was profitable and things were cool. So this is why you're seeing buildings all over the world now, fancy stuff. I'm not saying it's cheap, but there's a lot of people willing to pay now for windows and skylights and fancy banks and all the rest of it. Shingles, that's, you know, Tesla shingles. And I wanted to push the envelope. Zero energy is awesome. And now there's a 10-story tall window outside the city of Dubai that you go out as like a tourist amenity. And the whole thing is making electricity. The glass that you're staring through to frame the city is a PV window, 10 stories tall. So the ability of us to use glass and pick up electricity from it is radically expanding and improving. And there, now we're going to do our questions. So go ahead, I'll do the clapping thing. There you go. And I'm gonna, you guys want to, those who want to leave, you should do that now. And then those who want to like stick around for the Q&A thing, then do that. It'll make it easier. So you had a question?
Yes, you were talking about California and the electrification right now here.
Yes, we're the worst state for electrification in the union.
Yeah, and so you said something about a neighborhood, and then something needs to be developed there. What was that?
So the idea of how do you get rid of gas? You can do your own house, but gas is still in the street. So ideally, well, not ideally, the way that it has to happen is we have to shut off neighborhoods. Every individual is worth doing. But the real move is to shut off the neighborhood, so you get rid of all the leaks in the street all at once. And so that kind of coordinated effort requires planning and activism, but that's how it will really happen. Is you go to the tippiest branches and you go branch and you just try to cut off the twigs and you keep on moving your way back of the tree of gas, and that's ideal. But really, anyone who shuts off their gas is a radical activist. And SoCal Gas was paid last year $1 million to talk about shutting off their gas. PG&E, a year and a half ago, started having secret conversations about getting rid of their gas asset. Not coincidentally, when they went bankrupt, they immediately said, like, anyone want to buy our gas asset? Because that'll really help us pay it off. No one wants to buy their gas asset. There's going to be no gas sold in the state in about 15 years. For real. Like, we're supposed to try to get to 2030. We're supposed to have a carbon neutral economy by 2045. But all you have to do is reduce gas sales by about 10 to 20%, and it sends the utility into what's called a death spiral. 80% of their revenue is off the piping infrastructure. 20% is off gas sales. They only make their money off of new construction. The business model is to put in new gas. As soon as people stop putting in new gas, they don't really have sales other than gas infrastructure. That's what they sell. So the act of the state starting to no longer allow gas expansion is why PG and SoCal Gas started buying solar fields last couple of years. The fossil fuel company is buying solar fields, not to shut them down, but to try to transition. So when I say how fast it's going to go, like, no one thought horses were going to disappear in 1900, but by 1913 there was not a single horse on the streets in New York in any of the photos you can find, except a couple decorative ones. Like, it's been like that for 100 years now. So I see gas as like, you don't know it's going to tip until it tips, because of the way that the death spiral trigger just a little bit less gas expansion. Basically, oh God, that's true all over the country. They write about it, the death spiral of utilities.
Going back to that, it's not up there, but the slide of the different households and how much stuff each person has.
Yeah.
Like, we're gonna have to replace all that stuff with different stuff.
Yeah.
More efficient. Let them know when you think about, like, just the consumption of things.
Well, I feel like, I can see, like, cement is about 1/4 of the impact of a building when it's built for its next 50 years. So the foundation of the building, even if it's zero net energy, about 1/4 of all the CO2 that's going to happen in the first 50 years happen on day one because of the foundation. So I look at a lot of products as like, once you have it, you should not waste it, because the making of it is a far greater climate impact. So, use it up, use it out. We need the grid to be green. Like, it's actually really hard to make every single household the right, perfect, efficient household with everyone's equipment working right. And most of you guys won't even pay for it. The difference between, like, optimal working house and not optimal working house might be 10 or 20 bucks a month. So trying to get maximum efficiency by, like, replacing everything is not as important as just getting rid of the gas and only using renewable energy. And then you can decide whether or not your personal use of energy is wise or not. But I wouldn't go out there and just, like, replace everything. I'd go out there and get rid of all the gas. That's a rapid, we got to do that. We don't need more efficiency, honestly. Efficiency is great, but that's not the crisis. It's around gas, not how much, per se. It's a leakage, once again.
So that would let it go of gas.
Yep. Immediately, like 10 years ago. Absolutely. Yes. It's still worth it, because of the methane leakage associated with it. Because it is right now like 1/3 of all the climate change we're going to feel in the next 10 years. The gas is leaking, not even what's being burnt. So, like, all our hot days, you can just, like, this shit's just because of leakage. It's a little tricky because we're only now starting to figure out how methane multiplies when you're burning it in homes. So right now we say 41% or 38 to 41% of our climate change is due to cars, but gas doesn't work like methane. And it's only been in, like, the last year and a half that people have been like, we really need to redo this math. We have to get serious about this. So I don't have a good answer, except that we know that it's far more than our current math on how it works. Yes, you?
So let's say next month we get rid of everything.
Yes.
That's in the house. We're working on it. Do they need to do anything else? I mean, do we above the gas line that connects us to the PG&E main?
You own that gas line?
Yeah.
So it's your personal property, and when PG&E comes out to shut you off, they won't touch it. What they'll do is they'll take a sawzall and they'll cut off the meter, and they'll literally just haul it away. And they'll go out into the street, and they'll dig 6 feet deep. You'll see them like up to here, and there'll be 4 or 5 of them with gas meters. And they'll take a backhoe and they'll crush the pipe that's going to your house, and then they'll hot weld it, which is why they have all the safety gear there. That's how you turn off the gas. Anywhere. There's no such thing as a gas valve. There's a backhoe and a whole crew taking an entire day to shut off your house, which is amazingly expensive. Amazing. You don't have to pay it yourself. But to get a sense, like anytime you have to have gas maintained in the street, it's more than installing it. And I showed you how expensive the installation is. So part of me is like, if you make them spend money shutting off the gas, boy, it hurts them. But unfortunately, they get paid. It's like, there's always this little trick of like, how do you get them? Just shut off the gas. Shut it off the street. Do it as quickly as you can. Make a party out of it so your neighbors know. Yes, you?
How would you summarize that? You have gas furnace, like trade-offs between just replacing that with the heat pump that forces air versus like mini splits?
You're gonna use about 1/3 less energy in a mini split type system versus the ducted type, just inherent to the ducts. So there's a big energy savings in not using ducts, as well as a significant cost savings. But there's downsides because you have ducts and you might like to have your house treated that way. Yes.
Can you talk a little bit more about the magic? Like, how does the heat magically take air from outside where it's cold and make it hot inside?
Yeah. So if you are holding a hot coffee mug, you feel the heat coming through and it transmits through. You have outside essentially a liquid that's super cold, and it is absorbing heat from the air. So that's for heating the house. You send out a really chilled liquid, it absorbs heat. It goes through a phase change process. It will be absorbing it as a gas and condensing it into a liquid, and then re-releasing it as a gas once it gets into your house. So there's this phase change, which is essentially like energy storage, the phase change process. So cold liquid gets hot just by osmosis of heat. It's just because the world, energy flows from where there's more to where there's less. It just flows in by the universe's magic. And so in comes the heat to a cold thing, the cold gets hot and it transmits in, and through some phase change work, it just keeps on squeezing more heat. And as it gets colder, the compressor cycles faster and faster to send cold fluid out to get the job done. And as it warms up outside, it does a slower job. And that controls what makes it quiet and efficient. It's called an inverter control. Old school products didn't have them, which is why the South did heat pumps, because they couldn't go to cold climates without an inverter it's a little chipboard, just a computer to control the compressor. They just had it one speed. Now we have any speed, it's called variable speed drive. And speed it up or slow it down with cold liquid going outside to pick up heat. And it's just the reverse in the summer. You'll have cold liquid coming in, picking up heat in your house, and getting warm and going outside, and that phase change thing will blast the heat out. So you walk in front of a compressor in the summer, you feel the heat coming at you outside, and it's the reverse in the winter. You feel cold blowing at you. Electrification. The reason why electrification is more important than solar at this point is because let's say that you were burning coal at the power plant, 100% coal. Dirty, dirty fuel. Methane, by the way, is dirtier because of leakage than coal. Coal is particulate dirty. Methane is climate change dirty. Methane's worse than coal on climate change. Coal is worse than natural gas on what happens to your own lungs. So let's say you're burning coal. A heat pump is going to take that electricity, dirty electricity, and then it's going to do 3 times as much work with that. If your grid is inefficient, you might lose. You might take 3 units of energy to get 1 unit of energy to you because of the efficiency of the grid. If you take that 1 unit of energy and you do 3 times the work, now it's just as if you were burning coal in the house. But as soon as you get it to 3.1 times as much, or 3.5, or 4 times as much energy being collected and 3 units being delivered, now you're positive. Now you're doing a world of good. Even though it's 100% coal, you're collecting renewable energy. You're collecting the sunshine's heat outside with a device that's so efficient that it's overwhelming the inefficiencies of delivery of the energy. And no one has a coal grid. The entire country has got a mixture of big dams and a little bit of wind. So even the worst states, like 90% fossil fuels. So electrification with efficiency is the way you do it. And in California, our grid is going to be 100% clean by like 2035. The rule is 2045, but the growth part is like 2035. So in the lifetime of all of us, our grid is literally 100% clean. And we should just, I hope for all of us. I tried to drive safe. Got a head-on collision last time I came down here. Someone looking at their cell phone hit me straight on, totaled the car. Don't like driving. So that's, if you electrify, that's the real most solution. Electrify efficiently, ideally with a COP of 3 or greater. But even a COP right now of 2.5 is grid clean in California, like 1-to-1. And anything better than that's gravy. And pretty much everything's better than that. COP is a coefficient of performance, and it's also the phrase, it's just the efficiency. So I could say it's 600% efficient, or I could say the COP is 6. That's the same thing.
So I would love to